In a college football season full of firsts, we have another one. The first player in Indiana history to win the Heisman Trophy, the most prestigious college football individual award, is going to Bloomington. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner. Welcome here to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, I think a lot of the intrigue for the Heisman Trophy, of course, there's a lot of intrigue, going into the game. But because of what we've seen from the betting lines and everything else, it was kind of knew that Mendoza was going to win this, and you had those odds up all last week. But now that he is the official guy, what was your overall takes?
I think this is the first year that, in my recent memory, that there was no clear-cut winner up until like the last 2 weeks of the season. I felt like last year it was always going to be Travis Hunter, and then the year before that it was always going to be Jaden Daniels. So this was definitely a weird year, but that's not to diminish anything from Fernando Mendoza, because he definitely did deserve it.
Sure.
Based on the season that he had, and I know some people were like, well, and me included, I was like, well, Diego Pavia does have the stats, but overall, when you lead your team to a 13-0 regular season record, a conference title, and the #1 overall seed in the college football playoff, it's hard to give it to someone other than the quarterback on that team, and he had a pretty good year.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing when you look at Mendoza, because when you compare the stats, I mean, they're really not too different. But taking a look here specifically to Fernando Mendoza, threw for nearly 3,000 yards, those 33 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions on the entire year, and then was able to do it on the ground as well with about 240 yards and 6 touchdowns there as well. But when you look at both Mendoza and Diego Pavia, I think the biggest thing to me is, like you said, the results of the team were just almost impossible to ignore, and the fact that Indiana is the #1 seed, they won the Big Ten over a team that was dominant all year long. Now you can make an argument that Diego Pavia had to go through a harder stretch to get where he got than Fernando Mendoza did to get where he got. You can make a lot of those, comparisons, but I do think I didn't vote. Now that it's over, we can say who we voted for. I'm a Heisman voter. I didn't vote for Fernando Mendoza in the #1 spot. I did for the #2 spot. Basically, had the order in reverse. It was Diego Pavia and then Fernando Mendoza. But I was doing it based on what he had to go through. He being the quarterback for the Vanderbilt Commodores, and so I'm not upset by this at all. And I think that he obviously earned it and deserved it. And I did think that a Big Ten championship went a long way to that.
Look, I think there's 3 things that have to go into it. It's 1, the stats, and Pavia had the stats over Fernando Mendoza. But 2, it's also the moment, and in my opinion, Fernando Mendoza had more Heisman moments than Diego Pavia did. You look at the Penn State game, whether you want to say that was all on Omar Cooper and not on Fernando Mendoza. I actually kind of had to go back and rewatch that play before the Heisman ceremony, because I was like, how good actually was this play? And I saw he took hits from both sides while he was releasing the ball, and then Omar Cooper made probably the greatest catch of the season.
Of the year,
I'm almost forgetting about the Miami catch to begin the year. I do not remember his name, but I remember that catch against Notre Dame, and then also the story. And Diego Pavia had a great story going from JUCO all the way up to Division I, but the story with Fernando Mendoza, 0 offers, going back to high school. He didn't have a great year at Cal last year. I was a little bit, skeptical when he entered the transfer portal. I was like, okay, I'm not sure why we're giving him the #1 rated quarterback in the portal right now, and then Indiana picked him up. I was like, okay, can he do what Curtis Rourke just did? And we'll have to see. And I mean, you could easily make the argument that he's better than Curtis Rourke was last year. But I mean, it was just a great story. And I don't know if you read the message that his mom, that little video. I'd recommend you go and watch it, because it's a really nice story there, and it was a really nice message from his mom that's unfortunately dealing with MS, multiple sclerosis.
And like you said, he's just a guy that you just root for. He just feels like that kind of guy. I remember watching, it was after the Penn State game, and it was him and his wide receiver who made the incredible catch, and Cooper, and there was such a moment for him that he understood. Yes, he's the quarterback for the team, he gets all the love, but he was just like, hey, I'm nothing without all these guys. And for a quarterback to say that, a lot of quarterbacks just say it and it's just kind of, just tongue in cheek, so to speak. Pavia, I mean, not Pavia, but Mendoza, when he says it, you can tell it's real. You can tell it's genuine. And I think in a way that almost is complete opposite of Pavia. Pavia kind of looks like he's like hunting the spotlight. And I think that you might need that at Vanderbilt to be able to hunt that spotlight. But Mendoza, it just felt, it was just he's a refreshing kid to root for, so to speak, in a lot of the same ways that kind of Cam Ward was last year.
Did you see what Cignetti said to him?
No.
Right after he was named winner? He said, like, great job, bro. Or
something really?
Like that. It was just, and then he gave another one of those elite, not post-game interviews, but after his Heisman acceptance speech. And, I mean, Fernando Mendoza is just one of those guys that's just, he's so goofy in a way.
Yeah.
He's like that goofy guy that you would need in like a glue guy. But it would be very disrespectful to call him a glue guy because he's insanely good.
Right,
yeah.
right.
But he's just one of those guys that, like, you're on a long flight across the country, and I'm sure he had to deal with that a lot at Cal last year in the first year in the ACC. Mm-hmm. And he's just a guy that's like the class clown.
Right.
But he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he's just one of those great leaders. And a part of being a good leader is you got to keep your guys loose, especially in tense situations. And that's what he's been doing all year.
Right. He certainly has. And it's been a lot of fun to watch. On the other side of this, we'll take a look at the voting here and the overall votes. Because one of the things we talked about last week with Corey Curtis is that he thought Diego Pavia might have more first-place votes, and Mendoza would have more overall votes. It turned out Mendoza won both categories.
By a lot.
By a lot. And I think a lot of people and I think he might have won a few hundred more votes because of what he was able to do in Conference Championship Week. In fact, that he was on the field and nobody else was. So the other outside of Julian Sayin, but you've said it a bunch of times, or you can make an argument Julian Sayin's not even the best player on his own offense, on his own offensive unit. No disrespect to the kid, he's obviously done his job and he's done great. But
here's the thing: is I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
on this list, he is the most likely to come back. So he's going to have another opportunity. I know Jeremiah Love keeps on hinting about, I might come back.
No, he's
I
not,
might. No, there's no way.
No.
Then obviously Mendoza's probably going to be the number one pick in the draft. Pavia already said he's going to fight the lawsuit to get another year of eligibility, but it's not for him. It's for everyone else.
Yeah.
He's not coming back. So, I mean, Julian Sayin's going to be back here. And I don't know if you saw the press conference before the little breakout sessions
before the announcement.
Yeah, there was a video that was circulating around social media where everyone was around Diego Pavia, everyone was around Fernando Mendoza, and there was one person talking to Julian Sayin. So I mean, I feel bad. I've kind of been ripping on him in a way where he's like, he's not even the best player on his own team, but he's gonna have a few years to prove himself.
And I think that was in the back of a lot of people's heads that Julian Sayin has time. Yeah, he's the quarterback of. At that time, it was the number one team in the nation until they lost to Indiana. But there does feel a bit of like, hey, the wave is just kind of moving in Mendoza's way and Pavia's way going into everything. It just felt like Sam was going to be on the outside looking in, and the fact that he's an Ohio State quarterback and like you said, no disrespect to the kid, but it seems like you're tailor-made. Right.
Your time's coming. It wasn't this year. You did great things. You're going to break Bo Nix's completion record in the regular season. So, I mean, there is that. But it just wasn't your year. It was just a year where it was a great stepping stone for you.
Yes.
I assume that he's going to be back at Ohio State next year. Who knows about Jeremiah Smith and everyone else.
Right.
I know they're probably going to lose Caleb Downs to the NFL. But you're going to have the same opportunity next year, 100%. And then maybe even an opportunity the year after. But Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman after the Penn State game, it feels like, in everybody's mind.
Yep.
And I know Gus Johnson made the call, give him the Heisman right now. And I think some voters were like, I might as well give him the Heisman right now.
Right. And a nice push from Diego Pavia at the very end to be able to make it somewhat competitive. But as you said, kind of a long shot, especially after what happened there in the Big Ten Championship game. Speaking of that Big Ten Championship game, we heard from Fernando Mendoza about that game. And we saw it in the post game and maybe the moment, maybe the game that ended up winning the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, whether people liked it or not, it was my authentic and true self. I honestly just blacked out. I blacked out and blacked out in a good way, which I just saw the camera, saw the microphone. I was so happy because something we've been talking about the entire year, the Big Ten Championship. We do players of the game, and we had the Big Ten Championship won left open, and that's only if you win the game. And we've been manifesting this for a long time. However, now with the Big Ten championship under our belt, we're not the hunter anymore. We're the hunted, although we still have that hunter mindset, and we look forward to the college football playoff.
Thanks to our very own Simone Eli being able to get the best out of him. And she's so good with this. She's so good at that overall, being able to get those moments out of those players. And you mentioned it with Mendoza. For him to have that observation of, hey, we go from one to the other. He understands now. Indiana was chasing for the longest time. They were chasing relevance in college football. Now they are the standard. I know they haven't hoisted a championship trophy yet, but they're the number one team with the Heisman Trophy and in the Big Ten championship. Probably right now, the better. I'm using that in air quotes. Better conference because they have the last two national championships and they have the number one team and the number two team right now. And so he understands that, hey, everybody's going to be gunning for us, and it'll start with the winner of the Alabama-Oklahoma game.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it towards the end, he might not have been exactly the clear Heisman winner leading up to the final announcement. But what I can say is, looking at it after the fact and the events that transpired after the announcement, he was definitely the clear Heisman winner, because this is an SEC show, but we have to be objective here.
For sure.
This was one of the most embarrassing meltdowns I've ever seen from any person in any sport.
Yeah, this was bad. It was bad. For those that don't have the context, he posted on Instagram, F the voters.
But family for life,
Right. And
Look,
and I don't know how much of that was just the embarrassment of, he kept promoting himself and pushing himself, and I guess he thought he was probably a little bit closer.
He's probably walking around like this. Look, I've been a supporter of Diego Pavia.
Same.
I was on the Diego Pavia hype train, but now I don't know if I really can be anymore, because not only is this embarrassing to yourself and embarrassing to Vanderbilt football for your actions, this also probably tanks your draft stock.
Yes.
Because you're fighting to get into the NFL.
Right.
There's already people saying that you should be in the Canadian Football League instead of the NFL, or maybe you're going to be on the practice squad and then in the XFL someday.
Right.
All this is going to do is probably make you a 5th-round draft pick, 6th-round draft pick, even Mr. Irrelevant just for jokes. I mean, this is just embarrassing at one of the most prestigious events in the most prestigious award in all of college sports for you to go off and just say that after the fact. And you just talked with some Heisman voters that day before, including not RG3, Cam Newton. You literally just talked to him the day before, and you're just basically like saying in his face, like, I'm mad at you, and it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, it was, and I think that with Pavia, if you just put everything on its surface out there, the fact that he is a quarterback at Vanderbilt, by the way, and came from New Mexico State, no major offers, and takes Vanderbilt to 10 wins on the season, you would think, okay, that's America's sweetheart. Everybody's dying for that story to end successfully. And I think he's making more enemies, so to speak, than he is allies. And like you said, it's not like he's 6'4", 200-something pounds, and a prototype NFL guy. We are seeing the remnants of what we see with tiny quarterbacks, small quarterbacks. They would be like, oh, well, he's a good college quarterback, and that's about it. Like, so he's not only fighting to get on a roster, but now he's not doing himself any favors by acting this way after the Heisman.
No, I mean, it was an embarrassment to even post that on social media. The apology was also a little bit embarrassing, and someone always said, don't do something that you'll then apologize for.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But then, I mean, maybe Tennessee fans have been warning us all year long, Sam Granville, about the whole his brother situation, getting arrested a couple times. Like, it's just embarrassing to be basically the face of, I don't want to say a franchise because it's not the NFL, basically the face of a university right now that's trying to become relevant in something not named baseball.
Right.
And you just go and just handle yourself like that on a national stage.
Yep.
It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is, and it's like, dude, you have to realize, you have to read the room. You're still Diego Pavia. You're still a undersized quarterback at a also ran football program. I know he brought them up this year, but when you list them side by side, the numbers are comparable, obviously, because, and like I said, obviously, even with those 2 losses, played really well against Texas, had those turnovers against Alabama. And so, I mean, even in the losses, they were games that were winnable. They weren't, obviously the Texas game was a blowout before they made it a 3-point game late. But 27 passing touchdowns, the 9 rushing touchdowns. There you see the QBRs they're right there with each other. This is the reason why, if you look at these numbers, this is the reason why I voted for Pavia over Mendoza, because I consider it, yes, it goes to the best player in college football, but I also do a sliver of how valuable are you to your team, and he was the most valuable player. I know it's not the most valuable award. He was the most valuable player out of anybody to his football team, and so it was rough to see that on the back end. Like it felt like I want to say what Signetti said. Come on, bro. Like just like sincerely, like do better.
Yeah, it's just again an embarrassment to a university that is pretty, in my opinion, Vanderbilt's a prestigious university for academics.
Yes, yeah.
And I know the Vandy boys, aka the baseball team, has been prestigious in their own right, and they've held national relevance for the last few years now.
Yeah.
I'd say since the turn of the century. I believe they have 2 national championships.
I think so. Yeah. They play there in Omaha every year.
Yeah, I know. It's like that program is great. The basketball program, which we'll talk about with Cordy Curtis a little bit later, and I'll be interested to hear his take on the whole Pavia situation.
Right.
The Vanderbilt men's basketball program's at 10-0. They had I don't know what you want to make of that win over Central Arkansas. It's like 11 points.
Right.
And
didn't look good.
And now you had Diego Pavia, which I feel bad for Clark Lee. Like the person I feel the most bad about is Clark Lee, because he holds himself with such high character,
dignity,
such great dignity, always down to earth. I know he was fighting for his team there for a little bit. Some people kind of clowned him in a way for trying to play that 13th game, but you got to respect a guy that's going to fight for his team.
100%.
And he would never ever post anything about bashing the committee in the way that Diego Pavia did. So it's just been, I feel so bad for him. I'm sure he had a stern talking to Diego Pavia about, because now you just put Vanderbilt in such a terrible light that it's an embarrassing end to a storybook season for the program,
which should be an amazing storybook season for this program.